Okay, let's talk about Joe Biden on immigration. Now, Joe Biden has made it clear that the immediate next priority is COVID relief. I've already criticized and said it should have been done already. It hasn't. We're hoping that it gets done soon. Very soon thereafter, immigration is going to be high on Joe Biden's list. Now, much of what Joe Biden wants to do on immigration cannot be done by executive order. One bit of good news is that Joe Biden has canceled the national emergency order that Donald Trump was using to try to get money for his border wall. Joe Biden sent a letter to Congress late last week saying that no further tax dollars will be spent on the wall. Now, you might be wondering, but there was no wall. Trump promised a wall across the entire border. It never happened. What are we talking about here? That is true. But remember that Donald Trump declared a state of emergency over the southern border in 2019. That allowed him to use some military funding for construction of the wall. Now, the disastrous news is that Trump did manage to spend $25 billion on the project. The unfortunate, it's sort of like a Pyrrhic victory that Donald Trump had because he was able to obtain money for the wall, but they were really able to do mostly some replacement of existing border wall areas with a new type of wall and expand it slightly. So as far as a campaign promise, Trump failed on having a wall across the entire border. That was his promise. He made it very, very clearly and said that was a first term accomplishment that he would have. Didn't happen. On the other hand, it's good news in the sense that not much of it took place, and Joe Biden is able to shut down this emergency declaration of emergency and to stop pulling any more money from the military for the wall. This is the continued use of executive orders by Joe Biden to undo many of the disasters that Donald Trump did. Of course, much like debt and deficit, executive orders have become a political football. If your guy or gal is in power and using executive orders, then you say these executive orders are required and necessary to undo the damage of the previous president. If your guy or gal is not in the Oval Office, then you call executive orders, at least if you're a Republican, a sort of authoritarian, tyrannical circumvention of the normal legislative process. That's the way it's been for a while. It's pretty similar to the debt and deficit. But it is a good thing that Joe Biden has been doing this, particularly when the Republican Party is more obstructionist, arguably, than it has ever been. The exact numbers are that 80 miles of new barriers were built during the Trump administration where there were none. And otherwise, there were just replacements of existing parts of border wall or border fencing. So I think this is an important time to just remind you that we know a lot about what circumstances call for a wall and what circumstances do not. One of the really interesting things is that even without the wall, remember, Trump only added 80 miles. Without a wall across the entire border, as promised by Trump, Trump regularly claimed border crossings are lower than ever. So that's proof that if you believe that, that's proof that it is not a wall that reduces border crossings. And of course, we've long studied the reasons why it is absurd to spend these ungodly amounts of money on a wall. We know that, and we've seen examples of being able to scale the wall with about $100 in parts from any hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, that type of place. It is easily defeated. Number two, you have a significant portion of people who are in the United States illegally who have overstayed visas or came for tourism and never left. And they are mostly flying in, not crossing the physical border at the U.S.-Mexico border. And then lastly, if you want to think about the best ROI, the best return on investment for dealing with the issue of undocumented immigration, we really should be approaching this from why are people wanting to come to the United States to begin with? Understanding the economic conditions in the source countries, not just Mexico, but further south as well, and working with those countries. And if we are supposed to be sort of agnostic to how the money is spent, as long as it effectively deals with the undocumented immigration problem, then you would think that the right would be open to the ideas of economists and others who have said, well, let's instead of building a wall that can be defeated and won't actually address a lot of the people that fly in and overstay visas or just never leave when they come for vacation, let's actually spend money by improving economic circumstances in some of these source countries. Now, the problem is we know that for them, a big aspect of this is not just doing what's most effective. It's doing what feels right based on their framework of morality, as they would call it, or maybe as we would describe it. And to them, it would seem wrong in some way to give money to improve a country when people are coming here illegally. It just doesn't feel right to the ideology that many of these right wingers are committed to. But study after study, as we've outlined in our long form piece about this issue, confirms that that actually would be the most effective way to curb undocumented immigration to the United States. So the micro story, Joe Biden has cut that emergency declaration. There is not even a mechanism with which you could pull money from the military to build the wall. Next step is Biden's got to deal with DACA. And it is finally time, with Democrats controlling the White House, the House, and the Senate. If it's not going to happen now, I don't know that it will ever happen. It's finally time to really do the immigration reform we've been talking about it's been 15 years or longer at this point. Send me your thoughts. You can find me on Twitter at @DPakman. One of our sponsors is Hydrant, which is a delicious fruit drink powder that you mix into water for rehydration. And they're giving you 25% off your first order. It's made with 4 key electrolytes that the body needs, powerfully supporting your hydration. Hydrant tastes great. It's made with real fruit juice. It's been a great part of my daily routine for a while now. Keeping myself hydrated puts me in a better mood. The body needs hydration for basic energy and focus, and Hydrant is the perfect way to rehydrate, especially because it's cost effective and lower in sugar compared to all of those popular sports drinks that are out there. You really have to try it for yourself to see what I mean. It tastes great. They also have a variety called Hydrant Immunity, packed with vitamins A, B, C, and D, which is also very much worth trying. Hydrant has a full refund guarantee if you're not satisfied, and you'll get 25% off your first order when you go to drinkhydrant.com/Pakman, or just enter the code Pakman at checkout. I've put the link right underneath this video.